Hello, everyone. So thank you for tuning in. My name is Emily, and I'm a bookseller at Read It Again. And we're joined by Julian Winters, an amazing young adult author, to talk about his book, The Summer of Everything, that came out last week. Hello, Julian.
Hi, Emily. It's so good to be here with you. You have no idea how
Yes.
excited I am.
Well, I'm so excited to talk about your book. I'm going to give everybody a little bit of an introduction in case they don't know you. I'm going to cheat here and pull it up.
I'm all for that. I have notes all over this desk.
Awesome. So, Julian Winters is a best-selling and award-winning author of contemporary young adult fiction. His novels Running with Lions and How to Be Remy Cameron received accolades for their positive depictions of diverse, relatable characters. Running with Lions is the recipient of an IBPA Benjamin Franklin Gold Award, and How to Be Remy Cameron was named a Junior Library Guild Gold Standard selection and received a star reviewed from a school library journal. Julian currently lives outside of Atlanta, where he can be found reading, being a self-proclaimed comic book geek, or watching the only two sports he can follow, volleyball and soccer. In the Summer of Everything, which is what we're here to talk about now, that came out last week, is going to be followed by his fourth novel in 2022 called Right Where I Left You. And that's Julian.
Hey, listen, you killed it. I swear I need to shorten that bio by like 14 sentences.
Oh no, it's awesome. It's one of the shorter ones I've seen, I feel like.
Really? I am honored that.
Yeah, so just a reminder for everyone, if you have any questions, you can post them in the comments, and we can put them on the screen and ask away. There you go. So I wanted to, well, actually, we can start by, can you describe your book for us?
Yeah, no. I wish there was something offered to authors called an elevator pitch class, because I can't do this without making it super long, but I'm gonna try. So The Summer of Everything is a book about a gay, biracial, black teen by the name of Wes Hudson. He is in the summer, right before he starts his first year at UCLA. It's set in Santa Monica, and he has only two plans for the summer, which is to slack off with his fellow teen booksellers at the independent bookstore they work at called Once Upon a Page, and to also finally confess his major crush for his best friend Nico. But all of his plans kind of get thrown out the window when he finds out that the bookstore is actually being shut down and taken over by a franchise coffee shop, kind of like a Starbucks kind of thing. And now he has to change all of his plans for the summer and try to raise money and raise awareness to save the bookstore, while also dealing with the fact that his older brother is getting married and wants Wes to help out, even though they don't get along, and also deal with the fact that, oh yeah, he's going to college and he has no idea what he's going to do with his life, or like what's his 5-year plan. And so he's struggling through all these things throughout the summer instead of just kicking back and, telling Nico he's madly in love with him.
That was great. And I finished the book last night and I really loved it. It's the perfect, in our times of COVID, it's a nice escape, which is what reading should be. So it was perfect and I loved it.
Thank you. I definitely wrote it as an escape for me a few years ago. So not happy that we're in our current state in 2020, but I am happy people have this book to escape into.
Yes, absolutely. So the first thing I wanted to talk to you about, because I follow you on Twitter, and I am, for better or for worse, very deep in book Twitter sometimes. And you talk a lot about, or I don't know a lot, but I saw you talking on Twitter a couple weeks ago about how much music influences your book. So I think you can see that, and like you referenced it a lot. And I know you talked about you listened to Lainey a lot while you wrote this book. Is that right? Or was that the next book?
No, that's this book. That is definitely this book.
Okay, so I kind of wanted to just ask you, just generally, kind of like how music influences your books. Like, is it the characters? Is it the vibe? Is it everything?
It is a little bit of everything for me. Music plays such a huge part in how I find my inspiration, how I find creativity. For this book in particular, it's how I found the vibe for the book, because I kind of knew what I wanted to write. I was like, oh yeah, I want to write this super geeky queer rom-com. That's just what I want to write. But I could not find like this feel for it every time I try to plan it and outline it. And then I stumbled upon Lainey. Just bless them. I stumbled upon I think it was first their song "Made in Hollywood," and I was listening to it. It is such like the vibe is so good. It's so feel good. It's so like poetic and romantic, but at the same time, like I just want to drive with the windows down through the city kind of thing. And so that played a big part of me feeling like that's what I want to give a reader while reading this. It's just that feel good vibe, like you just enjoying every moment of life. And so yes, music provides the vibe. Sometimes I can listen to a song and that's how an idea comes to me for a scene. Sometimes I can listen to a song and it'll give me the mood that I'm trying to capture for a character, whether it's a tense moment for them, whether it's a sad moment for them, just a different feeling. So music is huge for me when it comes to writing. In fact, there have been times where I've gone to go write in coffee shops and I've forgotten my headphones and I won't write. I will pack everything back up and go home. Just because I listen to my music, like, I can't listen because I'm in public. I can't just like play the music through the speakers. So I won't. The day is done. I've driven 40 minutes all the way back home in traffic just because I didn't have my headphones and could listen to music. So yeah.
I love that so much. Yeah, I think that's awesome. Definitely. I always listen to music when I read, and that kind of vibes for me. So I love that. And I think Nicole actually had a question for you about the music. So the different employees at the bookstore in Summer of Everything keep fighting over the music. Which character's music taste is yours closest to?
Which one is mine closest to? I think I'm a little bit West because I do love 90s music a lot. There's something about it. I don't know if it's just that whole childhood thing for me, or if it's the lyrics or whatever, but I do love 90s music a lot. But I'm also, and I got a tweet about this, and it's so funny. I am also very much like Ella. Like, I love me some emo punk rock, okay? So, and I wasn't trying to hate on that when I was writing this story, but I just find it so funny sometimes how hardcore, and this isn't like in general with music, how hardcore people can be about their certain genre of music. And I just did that with Ella. But I mean, I can totally relate. I will throw on some Panic at the Disco, some Fall Out Boy, My Chemical Romance, all of that. And I will just be like in a zone. And it's really good for me. So
I love that. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So we got another, I think, music influence question. So while we're on this topic, so Kim is asking, were you influenced by Empire Records when you wrote this book?
This is such a great question. Not intentionally was I influenced by it. I went in, like I said, trying to write this really geeky rom-com, really diverse rom-com. And what I do when I'm at home writing is I'm in like my writing room, but I'll leave the door open and have the TV kind of angled so I can kind of see in my peripheral vision, and I'll put on movies and just let those play. Movies that I've seen before, obviously. If I haven't seen it, then I'm going to be distracted the whole time. But so I put on movies, and I always try to find like a theme. So the theme, obviously, for this book was rom-coms. So I put on like 16 Candles and Pretty in Pink and like a whole bunch of like old rom-coms. And I happened to like one day put on Empire Records, and I just remember kept looking over, like laughing at certain parts of it. And I was like, yes, that's the feel I want. I want like that feel of just a whole bunch of teens running rampant in this bookstore and having a good time, and them each having their own individual issues. So yes, Empire Records definitely inspired a particular thing, which I hope people catch on, which was the music part, where Wes and the teens always yell canceled when someone puts on music that they don't like. I kind of, it took the part from Empire Records where they do that. And I also asked my friends, I was like, yo, what's like a really good thing that you would shout out when someone's doing something you don't like and whatnot? And they were like, cancel. And I mean, hello, Twitter. I mean, cancel culture, So I was like, this is such a brilliant idea. I'm going to use this in the book. So I kind of rearranged some things, was able to use canceled. And so that's a shout out to Empire Records and just the whole vibe of that.
That's awesome. I think you definitely achieved kind of the rom-com teens running rampant vibe that you wanted. Yeah, awesome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so we have a question here from Big Gay Fiction Podcast. That's a fun
Ah,
podcast.
oh yes, I love them. They're so awesome.
Yeah, so this person loved the character of Lucas and is asking what their inspiration and what their origin story is.
Lucas. Oh gosh, Lucas. I think it was another moment early. It was early in the draft where I was for this book. I had an outline, but I didn't do a good job of following the outline, which I love. I love how it just kind of all came to me so organically. And I was listening to music. I can't remember what I was listening to, but I was thinking about the experiences of being inside of a bookstore and how everyone kind of makes you feel welcome. How like independent bookstores, I think, are the best thing in the world because you go in there as a stranger and you walk out feeling like you're part of the family. Like everyone's so friendly, everyone's so welcoming and so inviting. And the character of Lucas just started as this small smidge of a character where I was just like, oh, it'd really be cool to write about this character who is very much inside of their shell, who very much only feels comfortable in the comic book section. Like that's where they go to, and that's where they feel most at home, and then give that connection back to Wes because that's kind of how he developed his relationship with Once Upon a Page. And so Lucas starts this little small character, and their origin story, I wish I could tell you how it evolved, but it just kept naturally. I was just like, I want more Lucas. I want more Lucas. I want to write more this connection between Wes and Lucas because it's almost like the reason why Wes is so adamant about trying to save the bookstore is for kids like Lucas who don't have a place where they feel most themselves yet, but they find it within the bookstore. And so it was so awesome. It was great to write a non-binary character like Lucas, who is just, once you get to know them, they're so vibrant, they're so lovable, they are so passionate. They're kind of like the anti-West in that they will call out West for his terrible music taste. They will call out West for, his terrible comic book choices and things like that. And it's just, I had a lot of fun. It's really cool to have a character like that where it kind of takes you out of the element of the tension and the stress and all the anxiety that West is feeling, and have a character who just, reminds him, oh, this is why life is so good.
Yeah, I loved the dynamic between Wes and Lucas, and I actually did want to mention this to you because just as a bookseller, like seeing that connection, I like my favorite thing, like my favorite part of working at Read It Again was when I got to like recommend a teen some books and they like bought them all just based on my recommendation, and then like come back and tell me they love them. That's like the ultimate fulfillment, and that's like the best part. So I love seeing that like in Wes and Lucas. I thought that was awesome. So.
I loved that I actually got to witness that because I remember after we had finished book club for Running with Lions, and I was just still kind of wandering around the store. I just remember you getting behind the counter, and like any customer that come up, like you had these recommendations, you had this excitement about books, and I was like, this is so cool because here's a teen doing this. It's not like an adult who's doing it like as part of their responsibility of being on a job. This is like someone who genuinely loves books. So I was so happy that I got to witness that and it feels some kind of validation with the characters I was creating, because it kind of showed like teens are so in love with books and reading and being able to have that connection with other people. So yes, I love him too. Thank you for inadvertently showing me that that can happen and that space is there for people.
Well, thank you for saying that. Yeah, that's definitely, yeah. I'm glad that comes across. That's awesome. So I did also, so one thing that I love to ask authors, so your books kind of generally, I've noticed, are like pretty character based because like I don't know, I kind of categorize books in my head as like character based or plot based. So when you're writing a book, do you start kind of with a story or do you start with a character?
It changes with everything that I write. Sometimes it is the character that comes to me first. Sometimes it's the idea or the plot or something that I want to be able to tell with the story will come to me, and then eventually the characters will start to form. For this one, I want to say, I do know. It was more of the plot that came to me for this one than the character, because I remember texting my author friends like, so I'm really struggling with this character. So what do you think I should name them? And all these different things. But I just remember naturally having scenes in my head and the things I wanted to get across with the story coming to me for this book. But for like How to Be Remy Cameron, it was all Remy. Like Remy came to me first, and who I wanted him to be and what I wanted him to represent all came to me first. So it changes all the time, but I am very eventually so character driven that by like the 50% mark, I'm like, okay, so what is the plot for this book? What is the plot? So yes, you'll find that about me. I am so character driven.
That's awesome. No, I love a good character driven book. So
Yeah.
I love that about your books.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Okay, so we got another audience question here. So Kim asked, did you work in a bookstore to research for this book?
I wish. I do. I wish I had the time to do things like that. I do have a day job, so that does monopolize quite a bit of time, and then the rest is just like, okay, find somewhere to sit down and write. I do spend a lot of time in bookstores. Well, I did before, of course, 2020 just happened. But I did spend a lot of time in bookstores because, like I said, I love that environment. I love feeling like I get to be so much of my natural self in bookstores that I don't often feel like I can be out in the real world. And not to get heavy, but it's sometimes hard walking down the street, being a Black person, being a queer person, being all these different things that people can maybe identify through physical character traits or just in the way I talk or things like that. But when I'm inside of a bookstore, it just feels like I'm just a person. I'm no one else. I'm just someone that you say, yeah, go ahead, sit down on the floor, read that book. I'm fine with that. And you go about your business kind of thing. So like I said, I spent a lot of time there, but I haven't worked at one. But if anyone wants to hire me on the side, these are things I will definitely consider for 2021, just so I can be around more books.
Yeah, that's awesome. Definitely the bookstore environment is one of the best you can be in. So yes, that's awesome. So I think Carrie had Kim says anytime. And then Carrie has a question here.
Hi, Carrie.
So it has to do with the Junior Library Guild. How has the Summer of Everything being part of that selection affected you?
Oh, okay. This is a great question. So what they don't tell you when you become an author, and I think this applies with anything in life, when you get into a position and you do a good job, I guess, or you find some little kernel of success, what they don't tell you is how that always plays into the next step that you take. And so How to Be Remy Cameron was a Junior Library Guild selection. It received a star review, like all these things you said, and I felt so much pressure going into the Summer of Everything coming out because I was like, but this book is not How to Be Remy Cameron. So are people still going to love it? Like, are librarians still going to want it? Are reviewers still going to feel the same way they felt about Remy as they do about Summer of Everything? Because it is really much a feel-good rom-com book that does tackle some really, what I feel like are really great themes and topics, but still not on the same basis that Remy was. So when I found out that it was chosen for Junior Library Guild, I remember just like my marketing manager, Candace Miller, she was on the phone with me and I was just like shaking. And I was just like, what do you mean it was chosen? It's such a wonderful thing to know that the validation of knowing that we can tell these different kinds of stories in different forms and still have this want and this love from librarians and booksellers and whatnot, because they need that kind of diversity in books. They need that kind of varied shelf to give to readers and whatnot. So finding out, it's been such an honor. It's huge for me, and I love that the book will be accessible to librarians and teachers and educators and children and teens and young adults and adults. By having that low gold stamp on there. It's such a cool thing to have. And I hope that I can continue that tradition in some way, shape, or form with everything that I write.
Well, all of your books deserve it. I'm sure there are teens everywhere picking up your books and being able to see themselves in them. And that's just the most validating feeling in the world. And so you are doing a service to teens everywhere. So
Thank
they deserve
you.
that. Yeah, I think it's awesome.
It made the feels. Thank you. So seriously, I seriously appreciate that. Because when I do hear things like that, I carry that, like it carries me through so many days of, oh gosh, what am I doing? And you know, is this going to make a difference? So thank you for saying.
Yeah, well, you definitely are. You're doing amazing. Okay, something that I really wanted to ask you about. So you are from New York originally, right? And now you're
Yes, up
living
in
outside of
Warren.
Atlanta.
Yeah.
And this book is set in LA. So your other books, Running with Lions was set in Georgia, right?
So Running with Lions, I did a whole Simpsons thing where I made up this
Okay.
place called, well, Bloomington, I'm sure is a city across, like all across the US, but I made up this thing in my mind where it's like, I'm never going to say what state this is in, just so people can just take it wherever they want.
Okay. I feel like we did talk about that actually. That's like ringing a bell. Okay. And so obviously Remy Cameron is set in Atlanta, and that's kind of like that's where you live around
Yes.
Atlanta, so you know the area. So what was it like writing The Summer of Everything set in Santa Monica? Like, have you visited there a lot? Like, did you have to do a lot of research? Just kind of what was that experience like compared to your other ones?
It's very interesting. So when I first was trying to create the book, I didn't have a setting in mind. And I knew I couldn't pull the Run with Lions thing twice. And I hadn't, when I first started Summer of Everything, I hadn't done How to Be Remy Cameron yet. I actually wrote Summer of Everything before How to Be Remy Cameron. And I was trying to figure out, like, where am I going to set this place at? Like, I don't know if I want to sit in Atlanta. I don't know where I want to go with it. And I did take a trip out to Santa Monica just as like a vacation for myself to get away. I'd never been to Santa Monica. I'd been to LA, and I think when I went to LA, I had been to Santa Monica just so I could go take a picture by the Ocean Avenue street sign because of the song, but I never really explored Santa Monica. So I said, this is where I want to go. And I went out there, and it felt like I was home. Like, it felt like that was the first time I had been in a city I'd never been to and felt like this is where I belonged. This is where, like, I remember crying at LAX because I had to leave the place. Like, it just felt like it was a calling for me. So I was like, you know what? That's where I'm going to set it. And so while I was there, I had like a Polaroid camera with me. So I took a whole bunch of Polaroids. I had a notebook where I wrote down a whole bunch of things, like the signs and what do things smell like, what's happening, what happens at this time of day, what happens at this time of day, what the sunset looks like. I wrote down all these things in a notebook. And I had the pictures, and I took it all back with me here to Atlanta. And when I started when I started writing the book, I just referenced all those things. And I'd really like to thank the other authors out in the world who remind me that Google Earth exists. So things that I couldn't like really remember, I just hopped on Google and I Googled those things. And fortunately, before I started doing revisions on Summer of Everything, I had been back to Santa Monica twice for Y'all West. So while I was there, again, I was able to absorb things, write things down, or take pictures. So I had all these collections, things so that I could tell the story set in a place that I didn't live, that I only visited. And thankfully, no one has yet ripped me a new one for getting something wrong. So I'm glad that it definitely feels very California, very SoCal in my writing. And a lot of people said it transported them back to what it's like to be in Santa Monica. So it's been a true honor and a compliment to hear things like that.
Yeah, I've only personally been to California. I was there for like 2 weeks in high school, and we stayed around like the Santa Monica area. And I definitely felt the vibes. So I don't know how much I can speak on that because I was there like 4 years ago for like a week. But
that's fine. That's fine. I only went for like 4 days. So you.
So we have another question here from Big A Fiction Podcast.
Okay.
So do you envision your characters in the same universe? Like, could Remy go to Santa Monica and run into Wes? And they would love a Sebastian Remy West mashup. That would be fun.
Listen, I don't think I haven't told anyone this. I actually did write a brief, like couple of sentences or like a paragraph. In one scene, Wes is sitting on Venice Beach. He's at Venice Beach, but sitting there by himself in the sand. And I briefly write a scene where he sees two boys playing soccer on the beach. And because I was trying to think, oh, it'd be so dope if I like put Sebastian
Yeah.
and Amir in here real quick. And I deleted all of it because I was like, am I that guy? Can I really pull this off? Will people get that? But yeah, I do think that Sebastian and Amir could definitely go out to Santa Monica and somehow run into Wes, especially like someone like Amir who loves comic books and reading and stuff like that. So you can obviously go to one page. And I definitely think they could also run into Remy, because if Ian from How to Be Remy Cameron went to go visit his family that lives in California, then they would all see.
So work out. You should do it. Do it.
Exactly. It's y'all trying to make me write a whole nother book. Yes, they could all exist in the same universe. I was just too cowardly to actually write it into the summer memory.
Well, we can pretend. We can
Yeah.
pretend.
Someone go out there and write the fanfic. Put it on AO3, and I promise you, I will read it under my secret anonymous account.
Oh, absolutely. Amazing. So that actually segues nicely into, I was gonna ask you kind of about your like origins of writing, kind of, I don't know, books that inspired you or authors that inspired you, or just generally like why did you start writing? I know
Yeah.
that's like such a generic author question,
No.
but it's interesting.
I love that. I love this question because not to say that I'm different from like everyone else, but I do think my origin story is quite a bit different from others that I've heard, in that I hated reading growing up. A lot of the books, and I'm sure you can attest to this even now, a lot of the books that were assigned to me in high school, while written wonderfully, crafted just so beautifully, I'm sure, featured characters that I could not relate to on so many levels. And I didn't feel seen in books. And if I did, it was often, as a Black person, I was often had to do with slavery or racism or, trauma or pain. And as a queer person, again, it had to do with trauma and pain, and they often died. And so didn't have a lot of relatable content, so I had to create it myself. And so my origin is I started writing fan fiction. I would take TV shows or cartoons or sometimes real life people, and I'd flip the script and write it the way I wanted to, so that I kind of guaranteed myself a happy ending, or I'd take aspects of my life that didn't go so perfectly or that were kind of sad or whatever, and I was able to write it through fan fiction and turn it so that things ended happily. And so that's how I started writing. And it wasn't till 2014, 2015, where a great friend of mine, she was like, I was depressed. I was dealing with a lot of things in life. I had some things going on in my family, and like I was a shell. And she was like, you know what? I really think you should start reading. I know you love writing fan fiction, but here, read some of these books and see if it doesn't inspire you. And she gave me like TJ Klune's How to Be a Normal Person. And then, Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin and Larry Science. Yes, how to get that. She gave me those books, and she was like, read these. And I did. And I was just like, oh my gosh, is this what books are like now? Because this is not what they were like when I was younger. And I started falling in love with reading. And she was like, now let's take the next step and turn this fan fiction life into writing books, because you're really good, but like, you should be doing this with it and getting paid. I was just like, what? No, that's not happening. And she really encouraged me. And that's how I started on Running with Lions. And I remember while writing Running with Lions, I still didn't feel good enough. And then I picked up Simon versus Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Howard Talley. I remember picking up Boy Meets Boy by David Levithan. I think Adam Silver had just come out around time. So it was like Adam Silver is out there. There's so many different things. And I felt so encouraged to continue on with my quest to make Running with Lions happen. And I'm so grateful that those things happened. But it happened for me, I think, later than for other people, just because the representation wasn't there. And I didn't know if I was allowed to create it. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think some of my favorite like author writing origin stories, I love when authors say that they wrote it because it's what they wanted to read. Like, I just think that's awesome. Like, you didn't
Hey,
have it, you were like, I'm going to do it.
yes, I think that is so encouraging. And I hope people take that and apply it to all things in their life. Like, if you don't have it, create it for yourself. And then you'll find how many other people, around you were like, oh my gosh, I wanted this for so long, but didn't have it. So yeah, I love those too. And I love the authors that, came from, fandom and the fan fiction world, because it teaches you so much
Yeah.
about writing and creating and characters and world building. It's amazing.
People really knock on fan fiction, but like some of the most well-written things I've read have been fan fiction. Like,
I don't, you know what? I think one person, it's one bad apple that started this whole rumor that fan fiction was just, it's corny or it's not, very creative or whatever. And they just ruined it for everybody. Y'all read fan fiction. It is amazing.
I think on the fan fiction topic, Nicole asks if you want to, I guess, publicly expose yourself. Did you have a favorite fandom that you wrote the most in?
Do I want to let y'all find me? No. Do I have one that I wrote the most in? Yes. Yes, I do. What is I guess the one I was most, I don't want to say prolific, but I gained the most notoriety for was the One Direction fandom.
I love that.
Yes, so just put it out there. But that is the one where I gained, I guess, the most. I don't know, that community really built me up really well and made me feel like I was an excellent writer. So that's the one. But it's so funny because I on Instagram on Twitter the other day, a friend of mine that I knew from way back when I wrote in Live Journal, she was like, she's a librarian. She was like, I get to, stock this author's book, knowing that we wrote fan fiction together way back when Live Journal was a thing. And so like the whole community, it's been amazing. I will, happily say I stand hard for One Direction.
As you should.
Yeah, they do have great music, y'all. And that's where I think I really found who I was as a writer.
That's awesome. I love that. That's a quality origin story. So what kind of were some of your favorite like books? I guess you said you didn't love to read when you were younger, and you mentioned like Ari and Dante as kind of but did you have any other like specific ones that kind of, I don't know, pushed you into writing, or just that inspired you, that you read, that you loved?
Yeah, well, let's see. I remember because I think I had, like, it was a good period where I even stopped writing Running with Lions just so I could read more. But it was Aristotle, Dante, Discover Secret Universe, like I said, Boy Meets Boy, David Levithan, and then I moved on to One Man Guy by Michael Barakiba. Then I moved from there to, I want to say, Simon. And then from Simon, it went to Whatever by S.J. Gossley. Then from Whatever, it went to, oh gosh, I'm trying to remember. Because it was like this whole cycle I went through where I was just so obsessed with all the queer fiction that was out there. Not Your Sidekick by C.B. Lee. I'm just going to try to peek at I don't know. But yeah, a lot of that stuff, a lot of those books, and this was around the time just when We Need Diverse Books was starting out. So I'm so happy to say that now my interest in books and the shelf of books that I have is so much more diverse, where I'm getting not only just queer stories, but queer stories with main characters that are Black, Indigenous, people of color, and whatnot. The movement, I hope, continues and broadens even more, where I get to say, you know what, y'all, this is all I read is queer fiction.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, but back then, that's what my selection was of books, and I dug in hard, but also realizing I really do want to see more representation. So this is what I'm going to do with my book, kind of thing.
Yeah, I love that. And just a little aside on Ari and Dante, I don't know if you know, but on Twitter, there's an account that like daily tweets a quote from Ari and Dante. And it's like the bright spot. Like when there's drama on book Twitter, like that is my bright spot.
follow.
You do?
Yes, I don't remember how I stumbled upon it, but like you said, when I found it, it was in the midst of a lot of things happening, and I needed it. And I try. I was a lot better. Like a year ago about retweeting every time I saw one come across. But yes, I definitely follow. I'm obsessed. I really hope that the Ari and Dante movie happens. Like so many things I want to happen for that book in that universe. Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. So good, so good.
Oh my gosh, so good.
I also wanted to briefly just this is just something that popped in my head that I would wanted to mention to you. So the reason that okay, for anybody watching, I don't think we mentioned this at the beginning, but Julian and I met in like it was like January of 2018 because he came the teen book club at Read It Again read Running with Lions, his debut. And so he came to our book club. He very kindly agreed to come to our small teen book club.
I was honored. What do you mean?
But the reason that your book was on my radar was because Becky Albertalli like tweeted about it way before it even came out, and I like screenshotted it, and I was like, "This looks great." And then it came out, and I read it, and I was like, "We need to do this for book club." So just a small fun fact there.
Thank you so much because you were my first book club, and I was so honored that I got to go in person and do this. Because it was just like the thing I always wanted growing up as a teen and to be a part of, but again, I couldn't find the things that I needed then. But to be a part of it and to say, oh my gosh, they're reading my book was so cool. And I do remember I screenshotted that tweet too. I have it. It's like it's on my Instagram. I think in like one of my most recent posts where I was like doing a Becky Albertalli appreciation post and whatnot. But I do remember that tweet, and I like she was a one woman Running with Lions promo tour for like the summer of 2018, and I will forever love her for that because she didn't have to. We kind of found each other because I emailed her just saying how much I appreciated her as a person. I love Simon, love everything about it, but who Becky Albertalli was or I mean, is online, it's just the most genuine, lovable person. And I just remember emailing her like this stupid long fan email about her as a person, and her emailed me back saying, I saw the cover for Run with Lions, and I'm so excited about it. I would love to read it early, and then kind of things went from there. But for her to take me as an unknown, Black queer author who doesn't even have a book out yet, who is with a small independent publisher who works their butts off to make sure I'm front and center via social media and everything else. But at the same time, they don't have the reach that other big publishers have, but they fought so hard. And for her to even notice me, and notice the books, it was such a huge deal. And she's continued to shout about my books, and I truly appreciate it. I'm glad that's how we found each other. I didn't know, I don't think I knew that's how. I just remember screaming when I got the email saying you want to do a book club, but I don't think I knew that's why you found me. So that's pretty cool. All right, now let's see these moments in the universe. Yes,
for sure. Well, that's a nice parallel so Becky recommended your book to people, and that's how I found it. So what are some stuff that you've been reading lately that you have been loving?
Okay. Listen, I did my best to get all the books together because I always know this question's coming, but I'm never prepared ever because I do read a lot more now, especially in 2020. I dedicate an hour or more every night to reading something. And so what am I loving right now? So You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson. I'm telling y'all, if y'all haven't read this book, it is the rom-com of the summer of the 2020. It's so good. And I just felt so good once I finished it. Once I finished it, I picked it back up and start rereading it just so I could learn craft stuff because I was just enjoying the moment. Now I'm all about the craft. Like, how did Leah do this? How did she do that? I need to learn. Another great book that just came out is Tracy Dion's Legendborn. This book is so good, especially if you love like King Arthur and things like that, but it's such a well-built fantasy. It's so engaging. I love the main character Bree. I love how it talks about grief and dealing with that while making this Black girl magical. There's moments where I'm just laughing out loud, and other moments where I just want to cry. Wonderful. uh, Who I Was with Her by
I heard a
Nita.
lot about this one.
Oh my gosh. Read it, read it, read it. It is beautifully heartbreaking. I was not expecting when I first read it to just be like so absorbed by the emotion of it. And Anita does it so well because they just, it's so minimal in the words. It's not like this long drawn out thing. It's like just like one sentence and I'm a mess tears. So that, yes, that is a must. I'm so excited. I just got this in and I can't wait to read Each of Us a Desert by Marco Shiro. Brilliant writer. They wrote Anger is a Gift. I can't wait to read this. I am not a huge fantasy reader, but I will definitely lose myself in this book because I've heard amazing things about it. I am rereading Patron Saints of Nothing by Randy Rebay. It is another great contemporary book. Oh gosh, it's so good. So good. And I'm reading it just from like a craft perspective again. Darius the Great Deserves Better by Adib Karam. I think the world is pretty versed in how much I adore Darius Kellner and how much I loved Darius the Great Is Not Okay. And this book is like, you know how sequels can sometimes you're like, I still like love the first one. Not gonna happen with this book. I promise you. Not to shade anything from Darius because I love Darius the Great Is Not Okay. I still cry habitually thinking about it. But Darius the Great Deserves Better is like on the same level of emotion, humor, the ways that Adib discusses different themes and topics, the characters that just like pull you in. The way he'll surprise you with certain things where I'm just like, I didn't see that coming, but okay, I can rock with it. So yes, those are some that I'm reading, as well as if you haven't already read Cemetery Boys by A.
Yes.
We were having this conversation before. We almost ran into like going live talking about Cemetery Boys, but please pick up that book. It is effing amazing and so awesome, and like you won't regret a second of it, I promise you. And then another one I have to shout out is Felix Ever After by Kason Calendar, which is another book where it's just like, how did you do this? It's incredible. I love it. Okay, I've gone long enough with my books.
That was a great list. That was perfect. Those all, some of those I haven't, like I've seen a little bit about them, but they'll definitely be going on my list.
Yes, please do.
Yes, and yes, that's a great list of books.
Thank you.
Great recommendations. You could definitely work in a bookstore with those recommendations.
That would be the biggest problem for me working in the bookstore is they'll be like, Julian, there's a customer. Yes, but I am so into this book right now. And I promise you, I will sell them 10 books when I finish this chapter. It's so hard for me to put down books sometimes.
But that's awesome though. That's how it should be.
Yes.
Well, so this has been a lot of fun. I think I'm supposed to be wrapping up soon. I might have already gone over what I was supposed to, but adding somebody. See, Amber loves your recommendations.
Thank you, Amber. Thank you. Listen, we need to work something out when it's safe to be out in the world again. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And anybody watching, please support your local indie bookstores. If you want to buy Julian's book from us, you can find it on our website. But yes, love your indie bookstores. They love you. They want to help you. They want to give you books. Support them.
Please support them. Please. I would hate for us to lose the heart and soul of so many communities from a children's level all the way up to an adult. Because what people don't understand is indie bookstores are what keep publishing going. Without that kind of support, without that kind of diversity, what on the shelf, we wouldn't have it in publishing. If it was all based on what Amazon does, then the selection would be very limited, and they wouldn't, it wouldn't open up doors for all these very unique voices to be out there. So support any bookstores while supporting your favorite authors.
Yes, absolutely. Well said. So thank you everyone for tuning in. This was so much fun. And next time, hopefully it'll be in the store for your next book is what, 2022. So like hopefully by then things will have we'll have figured things out.
If not, we will all be in there in some biohazard suits because I need to see y'all in person.
Absolutely. All right. Well, bye everyone. Thank you for tuning in and have a great rest of your night.